Praise be to Jesus Christ, and onwards with Mary. Good and holy day to you all, my dear children, in the sacred hearts of Jesus and Mary, and in the most chaste heart of Saint Joseph. Welcome back to our morning feature, Holy and Coffee. Today is Friday, the 27th of December, and the Church celebrates, in both the Novus Ordo and the Vetus Ordo, the feast of Saint John the Apostle and Evangelist. And perhaps never an episode of Saints and Coffee was so moving for me as today's, which I celebrate. I celebrate to give glory to the Lord, my first priestly jubilee of 25 years of Mass. We're here in little Nazareth, under the gazebo, the Cathedral Church of St. Mary of Joy, and there are already faithful pilgrims here from all over Italy, really from all over Italy. Yesterday we already experienced it, to tell the truth, since the 24th. But yesterday in particular you started arriving in greater numbers, and even today more faithful will arrive. So it's been calculated that it's not exactly known, we should be around 400, maybe even 500 people. But yesterday evening there was this first introductory moment on the 26th of December, with afternoon prayers and then dinner together under the other gazebo, the restaurant we've opened. And it was very nice, a real sense of brotherhood. I saw the Friulians with the Calabrians, to say no, and really this little leftover is a continuous miracle. Let's applaud Our Lady now. And let's just say I'm a Christmas gift from the baby Jesus. I've always said so. A gift from baby Jesus as I came after Christmas. So it's about the Jubilee in the false church now, that sort of thing. The real Jubilee is today, my anniversary. But above all, the Jubilee because I walk with the Jubilee. My enemies will just have to accept that. Despite all attempts to bring sadness and oppression, joy always wins. I was ordained, I'm the first priest of the Jubilee of 2000. Right? That is, John Paul II opened the holy door in the evening, at night, between the 24th and 25th of December 1999, thus officially starting the holy year 2000, the Jubilee of 2000, and 2 days later I was ordained a priest. I've done some research, and I'm actually the first priest ordained worldwide. Yeah. I believe I've never highlighted this before, along with other aspects. I resigned myself to it because I never wanted to talk about it in the past, but a time comes in some lives like mine, objectively, when a person, if they are humble, must accept being a sign for others, and therefore tell their story. I don't know if you understand, as if they were talking about someone else, to the point where they know they have nothing to do with it but have been chosen by the Lord. I'm the first Jubilee priest of 2000. I don't think it's by chance. It's so beautiful. Right then, thanks first of all to all the faithful who are present here, forming a circle around yours truly, but above all thanks to the brothers of the Sodality, Don Enrico having just entered a short while ago, who are all present, and now everyone is present. I don't know where he is now, there he is. And I'd especially like to thank his parents too, his mother who's here, who wanted to come for this anniversary. I find it very touching, because I lost my parents this very Jubilee year. My father died, passed away on the 20th of July, and my mother on the 6th of October while we were. Some have argued that I didn't return and suspended. Many others who have a deeper faith and a more intense evangelical rigor. Jesus says to the son whose father has died, and Jesus says, I want to follow you, but let me first go and bury my father. Let the dead bury their dead. I had to leave the path, the mission, because my mother died. There was no need to return, then everyone has their own rigor. The fact that I lost my parents, however, there are also other parents of the priests. Let's do a switching operation. Maria Lucia is our priest's mother. Thank you for coming. Right then, so today's a day of celebration, a day of intense praise to the Lord. Right. So the priest is celebrating in these times of crisis. I'd thought of talking about that, but why should I talk about the crisis? Why priests face crisis? I tell you, this morning, when I got up, and I don't get up, I leap out of bed. I'm training day and night, truly, thank the Madonna. 25 years. That's not possible, because I'm happy to be a priest, joyful in the morning, evening, night, in trials, in joys. I never stop thanking Our Lady for this immense, extraordinary gift. And I don't understand priests who have crises, who wonder if... Coming in today, I said, to hell with Bergoglio the false. Satan's partisans, the priesthood lives, celibacy lives, because the priest is a free man. It's the bread, says von Balthasar. I'm carrying this book with me, which I'd like to comment on. I'll manage it, titled Total Existence. For me, it's a small book, but for me, it's very important. I don't lend this one. In fact, I lend all the books. These are the ones I don't lend because many books don't come back. It's called Priestly Existence, written by von Balthasar. I'll read something from it in a bit. There's the 5th chapter. I think it's called The Priest I Seek. At one point, it talks about the priest like a loaf of bread, always fresh, that loaf that gives off the fragrance of bread, the Eucharistic bread. Meanwhile, I wanted to thank you all for being here already. There's a good number of you, but more will arrive throughout the day. And here's the schedule for the day. Right now it's Saints and Coffee, naturally. The program is quite unique and unusual, and I'd say exceptional, because I haven't celebrated in public live on Radio Domina since 26th of May 2022. But today's a special day. It's my priestly jubilee, so the whole broadcast of the Jubilee from 3:30. Afterwards, it will be broadcast live for the faithful at home who wanted to be there. So today, everything will be broadcast live. It will pass. I don't know if the director... I'm confirming with Francesco. Has the director been informed? Perhaps not. It'll be frequently mentioned, so heads up. The priest in question has been laicized by the so-called Pope Francis, so people are informed and can change channels if they're not interested. But we're doing this for all the faithful, who are the majority and couldn't be present. They were very sorry to miss it. We're letting them share in this, because it's a special day. You'll see the wonderful things they've prepared. In this regard, I'd like us to thank, as we rarely do, 𝐸'Equipe, the staff who work with me, who are simply extraordinary people in how they dedicate themselves. Last night, you saw Nicoletta, who's quite well known by now, with her husband, a baker. Well, these are things you don't know, and often these simple folk don't expect any reward from others, you see. Simple folk don't know what to do with gratitude. But Enrico, Nicoletta's husband, she's the association president, you see, told me, Father, there'll be so many portions of hot food. Well, how many exactly? Well, I looked at them, and I think there are too few. What's planned for the 26th? Here, I don't know. Elsewhere, everything's closed. Well, Enrico went down to the bakery. He went to the bakery, opened it up, started kneading, and prepared the loaves. We then went on to eat. And then today's organization will also be very intense. You'll see. Naturally, there might be a few glitches, a few mishaps, because we're not specialists. However, it seems to me that so far, from yesterday to now, this equipment is also quite significant, because it's a considerable investment. In that regard, I urge anyone who smokes to stay well away from these areas, as they're not fireproof. So smokers, please keep your distance. If you find me in the mountains, it's because I'm smoking a cigar to get away from it all. I don't know if I'll have time to smoke it today. I hope so. Right then, my dears, so a big thank you to you all. So, the title of today's episode is, well, I didn't know what title to give it. It's not easy. Looking here, looking there, I found the title. And do you know who helped me find the title? It could only be like this because truly, Our Lady never ceases to amaze me. I'll manage not to cry today. But my heart right now is weeping with joy, emotion, and gratitude. But I'm holding back because I want to. This morning he called me. Guess what's the biggest call I'd been waiting for? Let's let the faithful say it. Because you know, that's not fair. You've got an advantage. Be quiet. Who says that? My twin brother. He called me Massimo and said this. Best wishes, the usual stuff. Then he told me, you know, memorize this number, 9,132. Yes. He told me after calculating, you've been a priest since December 99, and today's December 24. He says I calculated based on one Mass daily, though more are held at times. Anyway, officially there's 9,000. MESSE, I've celebrated all my enemies up to now, a dizzying 9,132 Masses. Masses, at least. And that was today's topic. The full title of this reflection is this. Thank you, Maria, for my priesthood, and then 9,132 Masses. The title. Right then, let's proceed in order. So thank you, Maria, for my priesthood. I owe it to the Madonna, like the Curé d'Ars, quite simply. That I was ordained a priest because the devil, who has always sniffed around me, evidently. Today I want to speak freely, as if I were talking about someone else, but it's right that I do it. Then my enemies can judge me as they wish. I know why I do it, to give glory to God. The demon has been sniffing around me since I was little. When I was born, I should have died. I was choking, I'd swallowed amniotic fluid, and there was nothing to be done. I lay in the crib, not breathing. My maternal aunt, my mother's brother's wife, noticed I'd gone completely black. He grabbed me by the foot and started doing this, beating me up. That's why I say I'm quite well off, because I got them when I was little. I started getting them right away. I took them right away. And then all my life I've had this awareness of the devil pursuing me. Since young, you're seeing it clearly now, because those who have faith, pray, and wish me well, understand that everything that happens. Because what I want to say is, if they're enemies, what do? Who's put this obsession against me? The devil. What's the devil up to? Stop. He always tried. Won't tell that now. But above all, I've been able to experience the presence of the Madonna in my life. Our Heavenly Mother, the Blessed Virgin, of course, didn't want to overshadow the natural maternal affection of Mother Catherine. No, but it was she, the Madonna, who allowed me, the undersigned, because everything was blocked, I couldn't become a priest. It was possible. The bishop even threatened to take away my diaconate. Imagine, not only did she refuse to ordain me a priest at one point, she even wanted to take away my diaconate. So then I'll briefly tell you this. I started praying. I told you yesterday I was left alone in the seminary, in what I considered an act of irresponsibility. As bishop, I'd never do that. To take a young deacon and leave him alone in the seminary in the summer, behind Palermo Cathedral, which was a desert, because everyone goes to the seaside, everyone to the countryside. And he put me there, and I started praying to Our Lady. I used to see a mystical soul, about whom I've never spoken and probably never will, except perhaps at the end of my days, a lay woman whom I took to Father Amort to show you that I don't play games or joke around, and to Mother Natuza, this woman who also died last year. Let's say there was a clear out before the 25th person. Dad, Mum, and this woman. I can only hint at her name. It's Pia. From a young age, she saw Padre Pio. I took her to Natuza because she had the stigmata, and I'd been asked to accompany her. At 15, 16, I had to free her from the devil, as priests refused. And Jesus said to her, he was already giving it a name then. I had to go. One Easter day I was playing on the carousel with my twin brother, and I got the call to go. They came to get me, I went, our silence. But I have to bear witness. I have to start bearing witness. So then I went, and I fought to free this daughter of God. But then I became a priest. I was by her side, by this soul, for more than 20 years. Being by her side means I accompanied her, and she helped me in the seminary. I probably made it thanks to her help. A priest like me came out of it. So if a priest like me comes out of it, it means this mystic. You understand? I don't know if you agree. I owe her a great deal, and I took her to Natuza. I remember when she went in, Natuza went to meet her, and they knew each other as if they'd met for the first time, yet knew each other. Natuza said those exact words. Come here, my sister. Come here, my sister. They hugged and said goodbye. Then I took her to Father Amort. We said our goodbyes. Father Amort gave her a blessing, and Father Grua, and so on. So a serious soul, then dead last year. So, when I couldn't become a priest, the bishop put me in the seminary, and I had to stay there. I started praying to Our Lady, asking Our Lady to help me. No way. The bishop, Cardinal Salvatore de' Giorgi, had already been contacted, imagine, even back then. Maybe you're surprised. I face things with such irony and lightness, but I've grown used to it over time. Got it? God trained me well. Who knows how I'd cope without? God trained me. That is, I experienced these things that are now before all of you ahead of time. The parish owners went there because the priest, I'd rather not talk about him, hated me. He wouldn't let me, having lost the battle, say my first Mass in the parish. I didn't say my first Mass in the parish. Where does a newly ordained priest celebrate his first Mass? In his parish home, but I had everyone against me, because the parish priest had turned the whole parish against me. See how relevant it all is? And the Pope, what's Don Minatella's voice worth? So then I'd already started like that. And the parish priest, who was what he was a monster, but he was the parish priest. And how many dared? Look, it was all a prelude. And how many were there? They dared. Among the laity, those who believed young Alessandro, a seminarian, were branded as heretics, accomplices of this perverse youth, and thrown out of the parish, starting with Pia, against whom the parish priest, the very man who had married her, then launched a smear campaign, turning the whole parish against her, including my parents, for a while, because she appeared as the one who had corrupted the soul of this young seminarian. In reality, the reasons were quite different. So there were meetings, of which I knew nothing, where the bishop went to people, parishioners, fideli, to speak ill of this seminarian. Without my knowledge, the bishop was in difficulty, because then the rector, who also died, him too this year, it seems that this 25th, but don't worry, it's ending. Sorry, but it's ending now. This 25th one seems to be doing a clean sweep. So I was saying that they were ganging up on me. But the bishop would first call the seminary rector to ask, but I have a good... And that's what made him, then, to meet that poor saint of a man. He's still alive. He's over 90. I greet him with affection, and I'm grateful, bowing my head for having laid hands on me. Who knows, maybe one day a bishop will come and lay hands on me for a further blessing, God willing. I'm expecting it. It would be necessary, and I'd say obvious that I become a bishop. What's that? Why wear the cross and ring? No, as Episcopos, the watcher, I feel I'm doing that. Anyway, the rector went around saying he's always in the chapel praying, talking about me. How's that? So what? He's schizophrenic. Under psychiatric care. This was the Archbishop's proposal. And sorry, I'm being told he does incredible things when he's out of the seminary. You tell me, the seminary rector, that he prays all day. He's in his studies. He's an eminence in his studies. I'm sorry to have to tell you, he's the best. I was the best in my studies. I used to pass my notes to my fellow seminarians. I was the terror of the professors. We seminarians knew that if there was a lesson without me, the professors would say, now you can ask questions. But if I was there, they feared my questions, so they guessed them first. The cardinal stops. So he says, so he's ill, he has problems, let's give him a psychological examination first. So it was September 1998, and I had to go to... A priest from Puglia, a friend of the cardinal, came, I don't know if he's still alive, to give me a psychological assessment. Well, it seemed normal to me. Then I don't know what he wrote. I mean, he couldn't make head nor tail of it. And it seemed that the cardinal really wanted to strip me of my diaconate at one point, because he'd come to trust the slander, the insults, the insinuations more than the objective facts that the rector was highlighting. Successful in my studies, always in prayer, I never bothered anyone. I never led a double life, neither then nor now. The devil did everything he could to stop me from becoming a priest. His anger stems from the Madonna's victory, as I'll now explain. Right? Then let's get to... because the crucial moment has to arrive. This knot had to be found by someone. The Madonna had to find someone to resolve the matter. So, I had a professor, quite short, he's passed away too, a Franciscan friar. I have to tell you, in my existential struggles, I've always found a Franciscan priest who helped me. I don't know why. I get the feeling there's a love story between the Franciscans and the Madonna, a spontaneous bond. While I, a priest of Jesus, am carrying it out, I see that Brother Celestine isn't doing this. But there's a Marian bond as a Franciscan. I'd say it's constitutive with Our Lady. I can't explain it better. This Franciscan father's name was Father Basilio Randazzo. He's from Carini. Then he calls me aside and says, "Listen, Alessandro, what have you done?" Because he'd been asked to join the team that was going to examine me. "What did you do?" "Dad, what's wrong? I want to be a priest." "Why all this?" "Look," he told me, "in my opinion, if everything that's being said isn't true, you have a special mission, because then it's the devil who doesn't want you to become a priest." He then wanted to talk to me and got a good impression of me. He already knew me as a professor. And do you know what happened? They held a meeting, just like the curé d'Ars. That's why I'm connected to the curé d'Ars. So they held a meeting, and the cardinal said he couldn't decide whether to ordain him a priest. He'd already changed his mind because my twin brother had also gone. I won't even tell you what happened there. He's always been so shy and reserved. And then my dad, I was thinking about my dad especially today. He said heretically, "My son was born a priest. They just had to recognize it." That's not how it works, of course, but I understand it. Because at 3 years old, I was celebrating Mass since we had 2 older brothers. Great, I'd bought a billiard table, but my younger twin brother and I, being only 3 years old, couldn't reach to play. But me, always a Nutella fiend, At 3, I was already detaching. That's how it ended. We'd come back from nursery school, and then I had to prepare the pontifical. I was in a hurry. But I remember at 3 or 4 years old, I was in a hurry to prepare the pontifical. So I'd go to the room and study the criteria, forcing my twin brother to obey because he had to be the master of ceremonies. Pontifical. So I was studying the matters. So I used to do this. I'd get the billiard cue and pull away 2 feet. The billiard cue's foot is a candelabra, that of the Holy See, in the Vatican, the solemn Mass. Then, hidden from Mum, I'd grab either the broom handle, snapping it off. It was my crozier. Or, if that went wrong and I couldn't find it, the carpet beater, which wasn't a crozier, but somehow I'd then grab the bedspread, the blanket, and make a chasuble, a hat. Better not tell you how I organized it all. I'd grab the toilet roll, and I'd say to my twin, "Now the Mass begins." "All right," he'd say, poor thing. "All right. You're the altar boy, right? But can't I speak?" "No, I have to speak. I'm the Pope." "You're the altar boy. I'm the Pope." So then we carried on, and at a certain point I looked out, because the small room where we slept overlooked a large square in Palermo. I'm from Palermo, you understand? I live here, but I was born in Palermo, and I'm a true blue Palermitan, the Palermo everyone knows. And I would lean out, and he started preaching. My father couldn't help but barge in every time I gave the blessing, Urbi et Orbi. He knew the time already. Look, I'm not making this up. You can ask my twin brother. And he went in, imagined the scene, and found it set him off laughing. He called those next door, from the house next door, to come and share in the papal blessing. Hullabaloo. So then my dad would come and ask me, while I was doing it in the name of the Father, and he'd ask me, my dad, I remember it so well, so young, now more than, 45 years ago. He'd say, "What are you doing, my dad?" And I had to address him formally, but I called him by his first name, all right, Francesco? And he amused, "Why? I'm the Pope, so what are you doing?" "I'm giving the papal blessing." So my twin brother went to the cardinal to try and explain all this. Then, in my life, I don't know. This morning the little nuns asked me, a couple of nuns, "Father, but when did you realize you were going to be a priest?" Never in the sense of always. My story's unusual. I never had a moment like others, a calling. I am the calling. I can't explain it. I was born, you see, with it. Never had any doubts. For me, it's onwards and upwards. The subject's dense, the discussion's dense. I've never, ever talked about these things, have I? But today's the Jubilee. You've come from all over Italy, so, I've never had a calling. It's always been me. Over the years, I've carried on just like the first time I arrived at the seminary. Right then, I'm not losing my train of thought. I'm just adding a few details. The key thing is how it all unfolded. The first time I went to the minor seminary, I was desperate to get in, but thankfully I was advised against it. I was advised against the minor seminary. Those who were guiding me said so. I was particularly followed by the Carmelites. So I almost became a Carmelite. I've always loved Carmel deeply. Okay? But then it didn't go like that. So, once I got my diploma, my classical high school diploma, and finally, in June, I got my classical high school diploma. So I went to introduce myself to the rector of the seminary. I remember the excitement, buying the bus ticket from home, right from under my house, to get to Palermo Cathedral. Behind it is the old seminary, from the 17th century, beautiful, but in my opinion lived in. Anyway, I arrive there and I speak with the rector. The rector is Monsignor Giovanni Muratore. May God grant him glory, sitting down, a portly man, a real Don Abbondio. And then he spoke in this voice. Who are you? I'm Alessandro Minutella, and it all started with a conversation. Then, at a certain point, he said, right then you can begin your journey, and then we superiors will discover if you have the calling. Monsignor, I said, you can say what you like. I feel the call of heaven within me. I live counting the days until I become a priest. He rightly reprimanded me, because it's true that it should be the superiors, but I've always suspected that he... He liked it because he was one of those. There are vocations like mine. Nowadays they're increasingly rare. But even among our seminarians, we have some vocations from birth, meaning they've thought of nothing else in life but the priesthood. Let's get back to the story, otherwise we'll never finish. I want to read you von Balthasar. And so this group gathers, psychiatrists, neurologists, psychologists, I don't know who else was there. Father Randazzo, the wise man I was telling you about, tells the cardinal that he is Our Lady's devotee. How can someone accused of these things be devoted to the Madonna? Someone said that if he were pretending, Father Randazzo, who was an anthropologist, said that I don't know what evidence he brought to the cardinal to say that he isn't pretending, he's not faking it. That's why it's an authentic Marian devotion. Father Randazzo then told me that the cardinal, it was as if, so to speak, the scales had fallen from his eyes. That is, he had become serene. And so, as I explained yesterday, I was teaching religion in Missilmeri, in the province of Palermo, on the 10th of December 1999, when the cardinal calls me, I ordain you a priest. When, Your Eminence? 27. How to tell him? But less than 15 days. I had to rush around to get everything, to buy everything. But, you see, it was the Madonna who intervened. She untied this knot that the devil had made. I couldn't celebrate. The parishioners didn't come to my priestly ordination, but God writes on crooked lines, because I'd been sent as a deacon to Missilmeri. Imagine this. The cardinal decided to ordain me on the 25th anniversary of his episcopal ordination, which was today, this very day. So the cathedral was packed, full of coaches, and the cardinal, I remember this very well, when the Mass began, he was absolutely thrilled. I was right beside him and he said, my goodness, the faithful have come from all over the diocese for my anniversary. The master of ceremonies, a tough guy from Padua called Simonato, he's dead now too, said to the cardinal, Your Eminence, they're really here for Alessandro. They've all come from Missilmeri, so it's not the parishioners, it's other people. So you see, it's all happening, again, on a grand scale. That's why I'm not shocked. I'd known all this, right? No, because I experienced all this beforehand, as you're hearing. And there were those who, livid, drooling, kept asking the cardinal, why does he order it? He's mad! Why? Did you order it? Did he do what they said? Understand? But the Madonna won. I became a priest. I began my mission. I couldn't celebrate my first Mass. When I asked, I was told it wasn't advisable to go there, to the parish where the priest and parishioners were all against me, if I hadn't done anything. And then I said, but what's the problem? And so I celebrated my first Mass in a city Marian sanctuary. In Palermo we have the Marian sanctuary of Our Lady of Remedies. And there I was able to celebrate my first Mass. And then I was sent as a curate to one of the most prestigious parishes in Palermo. But there they discovered that I wasn't just a theologian, because then there was a kind of It's a mental slip-up by the cardinal. Clearly he wanted to promote me, so he wanted me to go to the most acclaimed places. But I aroused envy straight away. So I was then sent as a parish priest to 𝐵PPPIITRRXXX. I won't tell you what I didn't find there. And then other outlying parishes, Then, 8 years ago, the mission began. But I owe everything to Our Lady. The first thing I wanted to tell you, there are many other details, but I want to tell you this one. For example, on the day of my priestly ordination, the plan was that the newly ordained priest, before the ordination, should go to the church, the cathedral, as was the custom, to greet family, relatives, friends, and the faithful. Then from there, he had to go to the bishop's palace, because the cardinal wanted to pray Vespers before the Mass with the newly ordained priest. What's happening to me? I won't add more now. I arrived at the cathedral way before anyone else. So I said, I'm off to the seminary, which is next to the cathedral. So I go to pray. I go into the seminary chapel, and good night to the musicians. I start praying, talking to Jesus, talking to the Madonna, and nothing, I forget everything. I come to my senses when the cathedral bells ring, announcing the start of the festival. Everyone was looking for Deacon Minutella, without thinking to find him where perhaps they should have. So the cardinal got angry again that time because he said, "Is it possible?" I was saying, "Please be patient. I don't think I've done anything wrong. I was praying. Haven't seen your folks. I'll see them soon." I couldn't make it to the party. There was no celebration because even the first Mass was ruined by the devil. I'm not saying how the first Mass I celebrated was ruined, that first Mass and what followed. But I tell you today, to those of you here and to those following me at home, that I ask the Lord to forgive everyone, all those who acted on behalf of Satan to stop me, and they didn't succeed, because Our Lady won. Right, let's move on to the second point. 3 firsts done to the second. I hope I'm not boring you a bit. I'm worried about telling you such personal things. But it seemed nice because Father Iohannes is giving the homily this evening. So the second thing I wanted to tell you is this. Time for ordination, right? There's a moment when you throw yourself to the ground, prostrate yourself, and lie there like it's Good Friday. And so begin the litanies. Kyrie eleison, Holy Mary, pray for us. Well, this is an indescribable moment. You feel that the whole church, even Benedict XVI speaking of his episcopal consecration, the whole church is praying for you. And I was there on the ground. I'd been told that one could ask the Lord, God the Father, directly for a favor. So while I was on the ground, by the way, I was 26 when I was ordained a priest. After being ordained at 24, I waited a bit, otherwise I would have celebrated my Jubilee 2 years ago. But many of you wouldn't have been there. God foresees everything. So I was on the ground, and I remembered this word that was used, that is, to ask God the Father for something. I turned to God the Father and told him that I desired only one thing. I wanted nothing else, to celebrate Mass every day. Now you might take this for granted in a priest, wouldn't you, for 2 reasons. A responsible reason of personal responsibility. That is, there are priests who willingly skip daily Mass. I don't know if you know this. I've told you. When I went, I think, the first time to Buenos Aires, some priests in Buenos Aires told me that Bergoglio, as a bishop, used to tell his priests at meetings, forget it. If you don't have any worshippers in church, don't say this Mass. Take care of the poor. Don't waste time. Don't waste time, unless it's the devil speaking like that, saying, don't waste time. I mean, look, surprisingly, many priests don't easily say Mass every day. They're put off, as they say in Sicilian. It's just not their thing. That's the level of duty. But there could be other reasons, depending more or less on a bit of carelessness or something like that, or on your personal availability. I mean, you could be unwell, all right? Or you have to travel. There are time zones and things like that, or setbacks. But it depends on how much you love the Lord, in my opinion. John Paul II, when he had surgery for colon cancer, I believe, his secretary recounts it, asked the doctors to schedule the surgical procedure so that he wouldn't miss Mass after the anesthesia. Got it? And even after the earlier assassination attempt, Stanislaw Dziwisz says that when he woke up after, I believe, several hours' sleep, the first thing Pope John Paul did, these are the saints, the very first thing, his first concern, you see, was this. We said Compline. He'd been asleep since yesterday. We said Compline was the following afternoon, you see, when bound to prayer. So then, not knowing any of this, because it wasn't known yet, I personally asked the Lord to let me celebrate Mass every day. Right? I'm here to tell you today that so far, this grace has been granted to me, with a strong commitment on my part, of course, because I've even celebrated Mass with a temperature of 40 degrees. I remind you, last time I went to Colombia on a mission, I calculated the time difference and realized that to catch my flight from Bogota, I risked missing my flight and not being able to celebrate Mass in Paris, because it was Bogota-Paris with Air France. So what did I do? So I had to leave at 11 p.m. Bogota local time. So in the morning I said the daily Mass. Then before going to the airport, it was already the next day in the other hemisphere. So I said, even though it was still the same day there, Mass as if I were already in Europe, home. So I made up for the Mass, which I actually couldn't say later because when we arrived in Paris, they stopped us and took us to a hangar because of the pandemic and all that. So the day I was available, I've always marked each. There hasn't been one so far since 27th December, 1999. Today, December 27th, just one day without Mass. So my brother called me today and told me the title calculated 9,132 Masses. But there are more, because when I was a parish priest, I also did 2 on Sundays. Mass is a priest's most sacred moment. Nothing compares. In your hands, the bread, Eucharistically becomes the very body of our Lord Jesus Christ. Once Our Lady of Medjugorje, I want to reevaluate Medjugorje with you. Perhaps we should do this, because there's a fake Medjugorje out there now. Let's stick to the real Medjugorje. Once an Italian priest, it's the Italian priests, I've seen it all. Once a priest celebrated Mass, and it was summer, he brought a small fan. Then an Italian priest was bothering Visca or Maria, I don't remember now, telling the Madonna, I want to see you too. Telling the Madonna, I want to see you too. And so since the priest was apparently quite high-ranking, I don't remember if it was Visca or Maria, she told the Madonna. And Our Lady answered him like this, tell him that he holds my son in his hands every day. That was the answer he wanted. He wanted to see Our Lady, and Our Lady said, but what do you want to see when you as priests have the grace of holding Jesus in your hands? That's why priests kiss their hands, and those priests who pull them away are a bit ridiculous, because it's not a personal appreciation of the individual. And to recognize from you, lay faithful, the sacredness, the dignity, the holiness of those hands that consecrate bread and wine, because at that moment, Jesus acts through the person of the priest. This isn't a small thing, is it? And I think this is the greatest act in a priest's life, celebrating Mass. Look, the holy Curé d'Ars used to tell his parishioners, suppose the Madonna appeared to you now. It's a famous saying of the Holy Mason. Go and ask her to say Mass for you. Our Lady will tell you, Our Lady will tell you. I can't say Mass, go ask the priest. Ask St. Michael if you see him. He'll give you the same answer. Then comes a poor man, because the priest has this great thing, that he remains a man but is invested with the divine. To the power conferred on him by the Church to transform the bread and wine into the body and blood of Jesus and to forgive sins. Or not to remit them, Or not to remit them. Here, and I think what I'd like to say to the Lord before you all on this, my priestly jubilee, is precisely this. To thank Our Lady for this extraordinary gift of being able to say Holy Mass every day. I remember once, returning from the Holy Land, the airport was delayed because soldiers boarded with their machine guns at the ready. You can imagine. And you insist, Father, take us to the Holy Land. You have to be prepared to go to the Holy Land. Anything can happen because it's the Holy Land. They had machine guns. So, I remind you of the tour guide, a really good one. He was a Palestinian. He told us that, don't worry, everything's all right. I turned to my family and said, it's time to get seriously worried. When the guides say that, it's because they're even more scared. Guns aimed, I don't know what. So you arrived late. I was supposed to arrive in Rome. Say around 4 in the afternoon. I arrived at 7 in the evening. And I remember going to the Sanctuary of the Divine Love, which was... The last envelope on the list was still open, or so I thought, but it was shut too. It was 8:30 in the evening. You can't imagine how many times I knocked until they finally opened. I think the priests thought I was mad. I begged them, I pleaded with them, please let me say Mass. I begged so much that they finally let me say Mass that day, even though I was late. But the Mass is everything. The Mass is the divine on earth. The Mass is the Lord coming amongst us, but only a priest can say Mass. This is the greatest deed. Poor, wretched, unfortunate priests who skip Mass so easily. Because it's the quintessential priestly act. You know that Bergoglio reduced me to the lay state in May 2022. And they perhaps thought that from that moment I no longer said Mass. I continued to say it even when there are gatherings. Until today I have been saying it in my room while there was the official one. It's no longer the time to hide. It's no longer the time to... Besides, we affirm that officially we are reduced to the lay state for the false church. You're been asking, I'll add my point. But I also, every day when I celebrate Mass, I put you all in the chalice, because Mass, even when you say it alone, has a universal scope. The priest, when he says Mass, is in communion with the whole world. So I remember very well, when the first television programs on RAI, on RAI1 even, on RAI1, I don't know which of you remember those things, those devilish, demonic escapades. The characters of the moment would arrive without me ever being invited to give my opinion. And what was the topic? I don't know. There was this guy, a bit of a... Let's just say we need to strip him of his cassock, and everyone applauds. Bravo, that's the way to do it. Who was it speaking? It was Satan. Satan hated and hates the cassock of the priests of the sodality. He hates the priests of the sodality. He hates Dom Nutella, just as he hates Don Enrico, Don Ramon, and Brother Celestino, Don Pavel, and more fathers will come, I believe so. But they must be open to this, I wouldn't say attitude of martyrdom, perhaps that too, but above all, open to the awareness of a battle against the forces of evil with the violence with which he wanted. Remember who watched those shows? The theme, no less, in Italy on Rai 1, was to remove Father Minatella's cassock. Here's the cassock. No one can tear it from me. I removed it out of caution, but here's the cassock. Today, the 27th of December, in the year of our Lord 2024, on this extraordinary feast of my priestly jubilee, I have two things to say to my enemies. Firstly, may the Lord forgive you, so that you may save your soul. Secondly, here's the cassock. You haven't scratched the priestly sanctity of this poor donkey of Maria. And the third thing, cheer up, I'm finished. I said there were three things, now the third. I promised I'd read you a passage from this meditation by Ansurs von Balthasar, who was one of my mentors, one of my true masters. You must also, if you care for me, be grateful to this theologian. He's not someone you can put on a holy card. I mean, he's no Padre Pio, no Saint Anthony von Balthasar, even the surname itself. But I assure you, you couldn't understand my mission and my priestly charisma without an act of gratitude towards this theologian who was also a witness to the faith. He followed a mystic. Naturally, I haven't got time to talk. I've written a book, though, very readily available, written simply, especially for all of you. It's called Ansurs von Balthasar, Mystic, Theologian, Witness. There it is, the director suggests, and it's available, the book is available. There aren't any more because I haven't had them reprinted. Just pretend it's not there. But today I'd like to read you, and I'll conclude some passages from this. Please don't inhale the smoke. Vi prego. Even if it's fake, please bear with me. It's not a reprimand, it's a courtesy, it's a sacred space. No smoking in here, thank you. Even if it's a fake cigarette. So I'm saying this for all of you. He's not a believer, because otherwise problems would arise amongst you. How's that? Then, no, he's part of the photo team. So the priest I'm looking for is called. Von Balthasar writes that if you're ill, you go to the doctor. If you're making a will, you go to a solicitor, to a specialist. Is there a specialist when it comes to God? God isn't bound by any laws. In this field, neither the sociologist nor the psychologist have any business. In this case, this unique being that I am, to whom the one God turns, should not in turn turn to anyone else. There's a relationship, as happens in Buddhism, in Hinduism. It's not like you go to monks and say, give me God's grace. A personal bond with the divine. Got it? Not in Catholicism, only in Catholicism, also a bit in the Orthodox world. Why not? Because in my relationship with God, I'm alone. No one can intervene, define, or mediate. As each person dies alone, so too is he alone when he prays, having to withdraw to his room, to approach Father Celestine, to understand and follow God's will specifically towards him. No one can vouch for that, there and then. But Jesus founded the church. So which church, and who in the church, can have the right to enter into my personal relationship with God? I'm a member of the church, and I can honestly call myself a good Christian, but I also know, if I'm being honest and sincere, how far I am from fulfilling God's requirements. That is, each of us, even if we want to maintain a serene, clear, personal relationship with God, in fact, we experience fragility, weakness, and ultimately we experience sin. What now? What we've said helps us understand how difficult and complicated the situation is for those seeking help. This is the first quality, then, that the priest I'm looking for should possess. That is, with the authority given to him by God to tell me what I haven't the courage to tell myself. So to speak, delve deeper into the meaning of these statements. There's someone who comes to you with God's authority in the church, who doesn't want to interfere in your personal relationship with God, but who, because of the authority God gives him, has the courage to tell you what you yourself sometimes lack the courage to tell yourself. This is wonderful. There's the theme of spiritual direction, of the priest. You know, I haven't got the time, for example, to follow you. I can't do it, because I have to fulfill my governing role. But I know that despite their many commitments, for example, Don Enrico, who is here, also Brother Celestine, Don Ramon himself, constantly dedicate themselves to confessions, even spiritual direction. Why? Because they have God-given authority as sacred ministers to tell you what you cannot bring yourself to say, what you can't find the words to say to yourself. And it's not that they do it as psychologists or psychiatrists. They do it on behalf of and at the behest of God and the church. I don't know if this is wonderful. First quality, the priest is the one who is delegated and empowered from above. It's not enough, though, for someone to mercilessly confront me with what God wants. Perhaps I've already come to face these questions myself. He, the priest, must help me persevere. Step 2, not only must he tell me the truth, but then he must hold my hand. Each priest does it their own way. Brother Celestine might. Much confession, Father Minutella keeps on nagging with the catechism. We're both holding your hand. Got it? We urge you to persevere. Me with the constant sermons, my dearest brother with the confession, with all the effort he puts in, as we know, Don Ramon and so on. That is, it's not enough for him just to tell me what God wants from me. The priest has to be there. That's why these priests in crisis, depressed, who don't know what to do, can't be explained. They should question themselves. But why don't they open the church? Like the holy curate of Ars, who when he arrived there found an old woman in the church, and cobwebs, and everyone dancing in the taverns, getting drunk and blaspheming. He went before the tabernacle. He was 30 years old, often held his hands in the shape of a cross and said, Jesus, I give you my life, give me the souls today with me. I've got the curé d'Ars, I said it yesterday, but for me it's dispensable. Don Pavel will be pleased with this. Don Bosco, here he is from Friends, Soul, etc. I'm taking a bit longer, but we're almost finished. Actually, it's still a quarter to the set time, but I want to finish this thought because I was supposed to do my meditation afterwards, but we can't because of the technical preparation and commitments. So afterwards I'll leave and, right, the appointment's at 3:30. Right on time here for everything that awaits us. We priests will enter from the end of the avenue with the band, and you will wait for us here. So I was saying, I want to finish this. It's very important to consider, that is, the priesthood. The curé d'Ars, he said to the Lord, give me souls. And the saints, and they're quite contemporary, St. John Bosco, Friends, Animus. What does a priest want in life? Become a bishop? Move up? Make money? Can I tell you something? Today it's my priestly jubilee. I kiss the altar, and I always say, long live celibacy. May I ask you? There are priests I've known, celibate, pure and chaste, who upon hearing news of a brother who's fallen into the weakness of the flesh with a woman would tear their clothes, but then you discover that they have bank accounts with millions in them. Where do you lose chastity most? In a moment of weakness with a woman, because there are women in parishes who are a danger until the end of time, and I speak from personal experience, or the chastity of money, which isn't, Right there and then, my dear seminarians, as worrying as a beautiful young woman, but it's more dangerous because it completely undermines transparency before yourself. Priests work for cash? How many priests know Bergoglio's not Pope? Why not come out? Why scared? Yes, but what? Of losing their salary. It's too sad to say this, but it's true. A priest instead should remember that when the Lord dies, he will ask him how many souls he saved. Got it? Right? About celibacy, chastity in my priestly life. These 25 years, I've seen it all. I've told this story before, but when I was a parish priest, I arrived at a parish where there was a group no one wanted to work with. The bishop actually took the mickey out of me. He really did, because nobody told me that no one wanted to go there. He should have told me, in my opinion, and he sent me there anyway. I was 27, and I found a situation similar to a Protestant congregation of lay people who wanted... I had to say Mass and wait for them to finish their prayer at the altar, reading the Word of God. But in peace, they didn't know I was Don Minutella in a nutshell. They got their revenge, hiring a woman to claim she was pregnant by me. The word reached the vicar, then the bishop. The cardinal asked what you did. I was incredibly serious, thankfully. Know why? DNA test eminence? As soon as I said that, it was all over. So I experienced that too. Back to us. So the priest is someone who accompanies. The shepherd guides the sheep. I don't understand these priests who get depressed because their churches are empty. Why are they empty? No one at first, that's fine. When I arrived at the parish of St. John Bosco and St. Gregory, there were 4 little old ladies. And then slowly I prayed the rosary with them. There was the old woman, Hail Mary, no, me. I had to pray it. She wouldn't let go of the rosary. It's a pretty miserable story, that power in churches. Even the old lady who says her rosary every day, woe betide you if you take her daily rosary away. In fact, she became my enemy there and then, and spoke badly of me. Who would believe it? It's a rosary, I wanted to say it, and then people passed it around. But there's a young priest. God can use anything. He's lovely. He's a lovely priest. Come and see. Thank you. Gradually, 10 people, then 15, then 20. When the cardinal first came and heard of Don Minutella, he asked one parishioner, just that one. He was elderly, sir, but is Father Alessandro doing well here? Yes, Father, but why are the churches so full? He won't answer, that beauty. The cardinal was a bit taken aback. The church fills up if you're with the faithful. I've always got a lot on my plate, guiding the little flock, but my priority is always being with you. You see that? We also had dinner together last night, and we'll have dinner together tonight. Any chance works for me. Then I concealed it as my family's habit of adding a bit to this table. When I heard that the seminarians and the little nuns had prepared a choir to sing, I sang religious songs. And that's right. I expected to add a place too, since it's a catchphrase. That's what I've always done with friends. Father, there are 45 dangers. Back in Nazareth, I had nowhere to put us, like now. Now you help us with money. We were just a few. Don't you worry, right? I always said, don't you worry. Providence intervenes. Nothing was ever lacking. We shared the loaf, not among 4, but among 10. Always be with the people. A priest must be with the people, without sacrificing personal time. Let's wrap this up. So Balthasar says, first, the priest speaks for God with his power. Secondly, he helps me persevere with his presence. The strength with which the priest does this certainly comes from his mission. That much is true. He can't manage alone, as he's got his own troubles and difficulties. I really liked when Don Ramon gave that interview in Sardinia. Quite beautiful. We priests do our best even when we get tangled up, poor chap. Perhaps at that time he had. Perhaps it's back pain. He says we also have back pain. I said, I understand you well. What do you do when you have back pain, when you get a fever, when you haven't slept, when you're nervous, when something has gone wrong? What do? You step aside because there are souls, you see. When Don Enrico was laicized, I helped him, like I did Don Ramon. And then both of us, Don Ramon said it himself. He said it was wonderful to see, without mentioning my name, this coming together in a time of trial. That's what the presbytery, I wanted to talk about this too, how false the rhetoric about priestly fraternity is amongst priests. It's all lies, but this bond, I assure you, is genuine. I went to Don Enrico's. It's genuine. I went to Don Enrico's in May, and then, as you know, to Don Ramon's. When I got back from the meeting with Don Enrico, we didn't have time to go down that last night, because the Mass went on for a long time. It was lovely. There where we were in Foggia, I think, a farmhouse. A really nice moment. So I myself forgot we were supposed to go in. We got in the car quite late. We didn't make it. We slept in Lago Negro. I didn't get a wink of sleep. The next day was the 10th of May. There was the Pioneers Rally here. It was Friday, so without having slept the previous night, I had to drive from Lago Negro to Sinisi to Carini. That's many hours. Then we ate a sandwich on the road. The ferry, the delay, the petrol, the tiredness, the exhaustion. It hit me like a bolt from the blue while I was in the car. Wow, today's the 10th of May. Tonight at 9 o'clock, there's the Pioneers prayer meeting with people coming from all over Italy. Wait for me. I can't go. I must rest at home. Those things are getting to me. You see, I'm a bit poorly. That sweet phrase. When I say sweet, you'll know who I mean. Mind you, everything you don't give away and keep to yourself is lost. In my heart I said, what does this mean, that I have to go? God alone knows how I got here, that everything was still there. Because in June then came the notification of the acquisition, and even this, I started saying the rosary. I couldn't stand up. I guarantee you that when the rosary was finished, I would come, and I went back home. I was lively and brimming with joy, because although I had gone home, I would have had regrets that I didn't give my all. But that phrase, everything you don't give is lost, struck me deeply. That's the priest. St. Leopold Mandic said it. Brother Celestine taught it to me, though he only mentioned it a couple of times. It really stuck with me, that a priest must give of himself until he's completely exhausted. And we see today how much need there is to re-evangelize. You know, miei cari, that I'll discuss it with my brothers. I have an immense struggle. In Italy, a small core remains. They couldn't destroy it, not even now. I read the small Nazareth acquisition maneuver. That's October, November, December. You understand what I'm referring to. As a consequence, to always try to separate you from me. And now, because the attack is finally, thank God, directed not only at me, but finally the time has come when we share the bread of the pain of persecution. You've noticed, haven't you? Finally, it's no longer Don Minutella who's the scapegoat, but the Maria Priestley Association. Thank goodness. But I have an immense struggle. In Italy, a small remnant exists. It's a fact. We're good together. Last night, as I think I said, this brotherhood was a beautiful thing to see. We'll see it again today. It's a fact. But the Freemasons, the enemies, the Satanists following me, have placed great emphasis on the need for abroad. Nothing grows here. They're afraid that this reality, which in Italy is now a reality, you only have to look at the rallies, Dominatella will bring it. And so every time I've gone abroad, have you noticed? Things happen that since I have to go back, if I stayed there, it would change. But you know, we have faithful followers from Argentina, from Brazil, who don't go to Mass, but don't have a priest available. I care for them all. What now? Should we go? Should I go? I can't stay a week like before. At least 6 months to try and convince some priest who perhaps knows us, who hears bad things said, maybe then verifies that they're just plots. Then Madonna does all. I invite you to pray for this, that Our Lady may give to me and may give to us priests, because we make the decisions, as you know, Don Ramon said, we take them collegially. Careful, the most important decisions, in fact, I'll tell you more, sometimes the decisions I've proposed that I propose are subject to review so often. And I'm pleased about this. A different decision is made from the one I proposed. The important thing is that there's unanimity in the decision. Then these priests, today's my jubilee and I've finished, are, if I may say so, titans. Look at him carefully. Don Ramon is the last one to have punched his card for reduction to the lay state. But look at him. I went there as happened in May. From Don Enrico, expecting to find them completely worn out. Certainly they've learned to keep this struggle inside, but outwardly serenity, peace, determination to move forward. It's all extraordinary. I'd say even more shocking is the unique in every way relationship between Celestino. Why? I'll say why. I'll tell why. I think the brothers agree. That one's finished wishing tumors live on air. Tell me, should I not save the shards of the little remainder? It's not normal behavior, seen from a human view. He walks barefoot. Know what he does? Interesting, right? Because for him, it's normal that he comes to a hotel with us, me, Minutella, with the little nuns accompanying me to get the rooms. Well, it's hard sometimes. And then this barefoot friar walks in, and they look at him. They wonder if he's someone coming to ask for help. He doesn't know it, but every time I tell the receptionist, he's with me. Look at my face, he's with me. Don't worry, it's with me. Then he's very handsome, he's so relaxed. How casually he says it to Pope Francis. Please, me too, haven't you understood? He wants excommunication. He's afraid we don't deserve the awards we've received. I have a different interpretation. I think we need Brother Celestine because, with the radical way he lives, I haven't found that in myself, thank God. I see many like that, and because I have them, I'm very flawed in character. But on the other hand, I'm now defending myself. For a mission like this, you need someone like that. Brother Celestine couldn't do the mission I'm doing. Everyone knows, but he has no flaws. He walks barefoot and lives the rule perfectly. To convince him getting him to eat in the freezing cold we've been experiencing these months, seeing as he started this blessed Lent of St. Francis, or whatever it's called, persuading him to eat in the evening is a Herculean task, just to get along. At least he eats soup, otherwise he wouldn't eat anything. And I think the devil's afraid of him. Not that the devil trusts us, I don't think so. But, you know, he's lived by the rules so far with great radicalism, and I think he'll do it until the end of his days. And so the partisans of Santa fear him. We need someone like him. We hope more will come. May Brother Celestine be blessed 1,000 times for the work he wants. The humble priest, I'm done. Non sarà tentato di propormi qualcosa che non sia voluta da Dio per me. Find the humble priest. What does humble mean? Understand. Because otherwise it's true that I could always be seen as a proud and arrogant priest. Because there are imposed, standardized visions. Figure out yourself that it's humble, So that's it. Today's my priestly jubilee, my first 25 years of Mass. We're here to worship the Lord. We'll do so at the end of Mass, as I think you know. There will be a Eucharistic procession. I wanted this day to seem, at first glance, focused on me, but I must let it happen, because through this convergence towards me, we are in fact all giving thanks together to the Lord. To the Holy Trinity and to Our Lady for this Jubilee, which with joy I am celebrating with you today. Thank you.